Iraq gained sovereignty. And it's a bit of a test, if you will, as to how Iraqi courts will treat these people.
There's a row over free speech in Malaysia after the government announced it's planning to tighten media regulations. It also wants tighter controls on internet access. Stephanie Scowen reports.
It's the kind of news no publisher wants to hear. A planned newspaper boycott in support of free speech in Malaysia. Campaigners say if the plan to change the Printing Presses and Publications Act and the Sedition Act goes ahead, it will shackle the last vestige of press freedom in the country.
Free press in this country, I mean, the idea of free press is most of us don't feel there is such a thing as free press in that sense.
The editor of independent news portal Malaysia Kini, which is frequently critical of the government, fears the worst.
When the guidelines have been set, when the confusion has been sorted out, I see, perhaps a major crackdown against online, commentators, including, websites like Malaysia Kini.
Malaysia Kini is one of the few media outlets to take up the case of journalist Hatta Wahari. A reporter for government-backed paper Utusan Malaysia, Wahari was suspended in January for comments he made as president of the NUJ.
I'm issuing a statement that please go back to the press freedom, please do a non-biased reporting and non-partisan, that we go back to our main objective, to disseminate information to the people. We should not be a propaganda tool to any stakeholder.
Some fear the expansion of the PPPA and the Sedition Act is part of a government strategy to win back seats at the next election. Others warn a crackdown will stifle Malaysia's development and say the government needs to change tack.
If Malaysia wants to be a developed nation, it comes with democratic rights and freedom of expression. You can have a high-income economy and restrict the others.
AlJazeera asked Utusan Malaysia to explain why it was taking action against Wahari, but the paper declined to comment. Disciplinary proceedings against him have been indefinitely postponed, but Wahari remains suspended from his job. The plan to regulate the internet is a major U-turn for the government, which previously said it would never interfere with the World Wide Web. It says, though, it must now respond to threats to national security. But just exactly what those threats are, critics say, is anyone's guess. Stephanie Scowen, AlJazeera, Kuala Lumpur.
There's more updates coming out of Libya, including news from the online edition of the local newspaper Kurna, reporting that people have been killed in the capital Tripoli when pro-Gaddafi forces opened fire on protesters. Bring you more on that as we get it. We're going to take a short break now, but there's more still to come here on AlJazeera.
And the Oscar goes to Colin Firth.
Natalie Portman, The King's Speech.
Few surprises in Hollywood as The King's Speech is crowned the big winner at the Oscars. And in sport, West Indies fast bowler Kemar Roach makes history at the World Cup. Details next.
Business Latest is brought to you by Qatar Gas, delivering energy to the world. Business Latest is brought to you by Qatar Gas, delivering energy to the world.
The lives that go unnoticed, the reality of addiction, the truth that is ignored, stories of inspiration. 101 East brings you the lives of the people of Asia. 101 East, at this time on Al Jazeera.
If you're a Nokia user, you can download Al Jazeera's news widget from Nokia's Ovi store.
The news widget, available on compatible Nokia devices, gives users quick and easy access to real-time news updates from AlJazeera English. See the world in real time. AlJazeera Mobile.
Let's get the sport now. Here's Sana.
Thank you very much, Trudy. Well, this year's Cricket World Cup has seen its first hat-trick. West Indies fast bowler Kemar Roach became only the 6th player to achieve the feat in the tournament's 36 years history. The moment came during their Group B clash against the Netherlands in Nagpur. Rahul Pathak rounds up Monday's action.
It's a sign of the poor state of West Indies cricket that the game against the Netherlands was by no means regarded as a foregone conclusion. The Windies' heavy loss to South Africa in the opening match, coupled with the Dutch heroics against England, had some sensing an upset. But the men from the Caribbean can still boast some of the game's most destructive batsmen, and after being sent in Nagpur, they climbed into the Dutch bowling with relish. The highlight was Kieran Pollard's 60 from just 27 balls, as the West Indies reached 330 for 8 from their 50 overs. Netherlands made 292 against England in their last game, but chasing a huge total brings its own kind of pressure. Tom Cooper showed his colleagues how it should be done. Just like that, he would go on to make an unbeaten 55, but then Kemar Roach decided to make his little bit of history. The 22-year-old became the 6th bowler to take a World Cup hat-trick. He took 6 for 27 in total to blow away the Dutch batsman for 115. The West Indies win by 215 runs. Meanwhile, in Group A, the Canadians gave further ammunition to those who believe the Minnows shouldn't be in the World Cup. Shown to be out of their depth against Sri Lanka, they weren't much better against Zimbabwe in New Delhi. The Zimbabweans racking up 298 for 9 off their 50 overs. In reply, the Canadians would have had hopes of improving on their last innings of 122 all-out against Sri Lanka, and they did, by 1 run. The Canadian batsmen collapsing to the Zimbabwean spinners for just 123. Zimbabwe record their first win of this World Cup by 175 runs. Rahul Pathak, Al Jazeera.
Well, the next match in the World Cup is also in Group A. Sri Lanka taking on Kenya. The joint hosts have something to prove to their home fans after defeat to Pakistan in their capital, Colombo, on Saturday. Sri Lanka have now won 1 and lost 1 after beating Canada in their opening match. They now face another of the World Cup outsiders, Kenya, once again in Colombo, with the star fast bowler Lasith Malinga likely to return after injury. Coach Trevor Bayliss is confident his side will bounce back.
Thought the other night against Pakistan we played some very good cricket for a lot of the match. Had a couple of periods where we didn't play as well as we would have liked. Our guys know that we can play a lot better than that, and that we have played a lot better than that in the last 2 years. And I'm sure they'll be out to prove and show how good they can play in the next match. And Kenya tomorrow, I'm sure they would like to put in a better performance than they've put in over the last couple of games as well. So certainly our guys won't be taking them lightly, that's for sure.
Football, and there's league action across Europe on Monday. The big game in Italy as first, placed 3rd in Serie A, with AC Milan hosting Napoli. In England, West Brom could lift themselves out of the relegation zone with a win at Stoke. And there's another relegation battle in Spain as bottom club Malaga hosts second from bottom Almeria. Well, there's a huge game on Tuesday with defending champions Chelsea at home against current leaders Manchester United. Victory would take Chelsea into the top 4, but preparations for the game have been overshadowed by a police investigation into defender Ashley Cole, who shot and wounded a work replacement student with an air rifle at the Chelsea training ground. Manager Carlo Ancelotti says Cole will play against United, and the club are taking disciplinary action against the England fullback. Ancelotti has also denied losing control of the Blues.
It's not true that here there is not discipline, because I think that the player on the pitch are so, and so you can judge the player on the pitch. The player on the pitch are showing a fair play, are showing a respect for the referees, are showing a respect for the fans. This is what you have to judge, not other things.
The new world golf rankings are out, with Martin Keimer officially taking over from Lee Westwood as the new world #1. Despite the Germans' defeat to Luke Donald in the final of the World Match Play in Arizona, Keimer overtook Westwood in the rankings after winning his semi-final Saturday. Donald's victory, meanwhile, moves the Englishman up to #3 in the world, with Graham McDowell 4th and Tiger Woods down to 5th. To NBA, where the San Antonio Spurs beat the Memphis Grizzlies 95-88 after a thrilling match on Sunday. Spurs overcame the loss of Tony Parker, who was sidelined by an injury. So it was all up to Manu Ginobili to save his team. Ginobili scored 18 of his season-high 35 points in the fourth quarter, rallying the Spurs to the win. And that's it from me, Shuli.
Sana, thanks very much indeed for that. Let's go back to our top story and developments in Libya. The UN's chief humanitarian official says up to 100,000 people have now fled the country. For more, let's go back to Nick, who's in Washington, D.C. for us. Nick.
Sheila, yeah, thanks very much. Well, speaking at the United Nations in New York, Valerie Amos said Libya's neighbours Tunisia and Egypt have agreed to keep their borders open to those escaping the violence. She also said she's concerned by, quote, the alarming reports of continued violence in the country, and has appealed to all parties to protect civilians. Well, I'm very pleased to say we're actually joined right now by Valerie Amos, who joins us live from UN headquarters in New York. Welcome to the programme, Ms. Amos. I guess the priority right now is actually trying to figure out what's going on within the country. I know you've got people in Benghazi, but what about Tripoli?
Tripoli is a huge source of concern. Of course, there are reports of violence there, between 600 and 2,000 people dead. We don't actually know what is happening. We are worried about people who remain in country who want to leave. There are about 1.5 million Egyptians, for example, but there are also migrant workers from across sub-Saharan Africa who are
Ms. Amos, do forgive me, I just need to jump in there. I'm terribly sorry. If you could just hang on there just for a moment or two, because we just need to take a live event which is happening right now, which is PJ Crowley, the White House spokesman, talking to the press. Let's just listen in.
Meeting in Jeddah and meet with key partners and allies to continue ongoing consultations. And Assistant Secretary for European and Eurasian Affairs, Phil Gordon, leaves today for travel to Bulgaria, Greece, and Slovakia.
That it?
That's it.
Okay. On Libya, can you be a little bit more specific than the Secretary was about these teams that are going to Egypt and Tunisia, and what exactly they're going to be doing, who they are going to be trying to help, and if they're and what exactly is the outreach to the opposition that that she mentioned before leaving on Sunday, and mentioned again today. Who I mean, is this contacts with the renegade or defecting military people who are trying to organize themselves into a force against Gaddafi, or are they political types, or both?
Well, let's start with the second part first. Among others, Ambassador Jean Kretz has been reaching out for the past 2 days to talk to a range of figures within the opposition, to both gain understanding of what's happening on the ground and to identify as we go forward what needs and concerns that they might have. In terms of USAID, we are dispatching 2 expert humanitarian teams to Tunisia and to Egypt. I don't have a lot more detail than that. USAID has set aside an initial $10 million in emergency assistance to support efforts of international organizations, NGOs, and the Libyan Red Crescent Society, and our Bureau of Population, Migration, and Refugees.
Okay, that's PJ Crowley, White House spokesman, talking about the humanitarian situation. Let's cross back now to New York, to UN headquarters, under Secretary General for Humanitarian Affairs, Valerie Amos. Ms. Amos, I do apologise for that. You'll understand it's a very fluid situation. We need to take these things as and when we get them, and specifically he was talking about humanitarian affairs. From your point of view, what are your major concerns about what's going on in Libya, from what you need to do and what needs to be done?
The major concern